Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Here on October 25th, 2025, Srila Prabhupada's disappearance day anniversary. His disappearance day actually was on November 14th, 1977. And it's a different day of the calendar because that's the lunar calendar. We're on the solar calendar, so it's like different days each year. We're studying Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 7, entitled Knowledge of the Absolute, text 30. Yes, so we'll discuss philosophy related to the disappearance day of great pure devotees of God, and we'll discuss something about the specific disappearance pastime of Srila Prabhupada. That's my plan and intention. Okay, so text 30 of chapter 7. Sariputta didaivam mam sariyagyam cha ye vidu prayanakale pi cha mam te vidur yukta chetasa Sariputta didaivam mam sariyagyam chaye vidu prayana kale pichamam te vidur yukta chetasa Sariputta didaivam mam sariyagyam chaye vidu prayana kale pichamam te vidur yukta chetasa Sariputta didaivam mam sariyagyam chaye vidu prayana kale pichamam te vidur yukta chetasa Sariputta didaivam mam sariyagyam chaye vidu prayana kale pichamam te vidur yukta chetasa Sariputta didaivam mam sariyagyam chaye vidu prayana kale pichamam te vidur yukta chetasa Sariputta didaivam mam sariyagyam chaye vidu prayana kale pichamam te vidur yukta chetasa. Would anyone else, in person or online, like to lead the chanting of the verse? Okay, so we'll study the word meanings. Sa-aribhuta, the governing principle of the material manifestation. Adi Daivam, underlying all the demigods. mam, me, sa adiyagyam, sustaining all sacrifices, cha, and, yea, those, vidu, no, Payana, of death, Kale, at the time, api, even, cha, and, mam, me, te, they, vidu, no, yukta chetasa, with steadfast mind. Translation. Those who know me as the Supreme Lord, as the governing principle of the material manifestation, who know me as the one underlying all the demigods and as the one sustaining all sacrifices, can, with steadfast mind, understand and know me, even at the time of death. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Persons acting in Krishna consciousness are never entirely deviated from the path of understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the transcendental association of Krishna consciousness, one can understand how the Supreme Lord is the governing principle of the material manifestation and even of the demigods. Gradually, by such transcendental association, one becomes convinced of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself, and at the time of death, such a Krishna-conscious person can never forget Krishna. Naturally, he is thus promoted to the planet of the Supreme Lord, Goloka Vrindavan. This 7th chapter particularly explains how one can become a fully Krishna-conscious person. The beginning of Krishna consciousness is association of persons who are Krishna-conscious. Such association is spiritual and puts one directly in touch with the Supreme Lord, and by His grace, one can understand Krishna to be the Supreme God. At the same time, one can really understand the constitutional position of the living entity and how the living entity forgets Krishna and becomes entangled in material activities. By gradual development of Krishna consciousness and good association, the living entity can understand that due to forgetfulness of Krishna, he has become conditioned by the laws of material nature. He can also understand that this human form of life is an opportunity to regain Krishna consciousness and that it should be fully utilized to attain the causeless mercy of the Supreme Lord. Many subjects have been discussed in this chapter: the man in distress, the inquisitive man, the man in want of material necessities, knowledge of Brahman, knowledge of Paramatma, liberation from birth, death, and diseases, and worship of the Supreme Lord. However, he who is actually elevated in Krishna consciousness does not care for the different processes. He simply directly engages himself in activities of Krishna consciousness and thereby factually attains his constitutional position as eternal servitor of Lord Krishna. In such a situation, he takes pleasure in hearing and glorifying the Supreme Lord in pure devotional service. He is convinced that by doing so, all his objectives will be fulfilled. This determined faith is called Drita Vrataha, and it is the beginning of Bhakti Yoga, or transcendental loving service. That is the verdict of all scriptures. The 7th chapter of the Gita is the substance of that conviction. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to the 7th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of knowledge of the Absolute. Om Gyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayamrupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganaraganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitan Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyeva cha patitanan pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gavani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine. Hare Krishna. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, text 30. Saribhuta didaivam mam sadiyagyam chaye vidu prayana kale pichamam te vidur yukta chetasa. Those who know me as the Supreme Lord, as the governing principle of the material manifestation, who know me as the one underlying all the demigods, and as the one sustaining all sacrifices, can with steadfast mind understand and know me even at the time of death. Okay, so today is the anniversary of Srila Prabhupada's disappearance day, and so we can say death. We can say sometimes Prabhupada will use terms like the birthday of Krishna, like that. At the same time, more technically speaking, if we're speaking about the birth and death of Krishna or pure devotees of God, like Prabhupada or Jesus, then rather than birth, we say the appearance. And rather than death, we say the disappearance. Okay. And in colloquial speech, we might say birthday or death like that, or like that. But more, it's like departure. And so that indicates like a distinction between like a conditioned living entity, like, myself or most everyone, conditioned by the modes of nature, we're forced to take birth and die according to our karma and psychophysical nature, and our desires for sense gratification and adoration and popularity force us to take birth in this, like that. And so, whereas the pure devotee of God, someone with Nishya Krishna Prema Sajika Banoy Shravanani Chitte Karya Udai, someone whose love of God is fully awakened, there's no material desire. Krishna Bhakta Nishkama Ata Eva Shanta. There's full dynamic peace. Bhukti Mukti Siddhikami Sakali Ashanta. As long as we have any subtler gross material desires, we won't be peaceful. And because those desires are actually an anartha, they're artificial to the self. So for such persons, for such pure, truly saintly persons, we don't use that term lightly or in a cliche way, that they're choosing, as you might say, it's all get to. That's why it's the word pastime. They're in co-creation with Krishna, with God. They're choosing to come here for a mission. So we see this verse talks about death. The previous verse talks about old age and death. And so that's a theme here. And then that theme goes into the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, which is about consciousness at the time of death and preparing ourselves. So an example Srila Prabhupada commonly gives is that, okay, so like there's the inhabitants in the prison house analogy, Durga. This whole material creation is called Durga. It's another name for Kali, and it's described Shri Stiti Pralayas Sadhana Shaktireka Chaya Eda Yasya Bhuvanani Bibarti Durga Ichana Rupamapi Yasya Chachestatesa Govinda Madi Pusham Tamaham Bhajami. The Kali Durga, she's serving for the pleasure of Krishna, in a sense, as the warden of the prison house of this material creation. Material creation is called Durga, like a fortress. So like, okay, so we have a particular cell, and these are our cells. Not some abstract, no. These are this particular body. This is our cells, right? And there's 8,400,000 types of cells, like there's solitary confinement, and then there's the minimum security prisons might be relatively more sattvic. Maybe some of you have heard me tell that story. Back in the early 90s, twice I went with Chandrasekhar Prabhu. He was the director of ISKCON prison ministry at that time. in the past 17 years or so, it's Bhakti Lata Gautier, who's a Sofitel graduate, comes to our program sometimes. And at that time was a very fine devotee named Chandrasekhar. And so he took me to some prison programs, and and we were traveling. Um, it was pretty far away. It was like on I-10 past or just before Pensacola. It was called Eglin Air Force Base, and we turned into the Air Force Base. We turned into the Air Force Base. I see there was some tennis courts, and they were playing tennis and like that. I felt a little envious. I hadn't played tennis in like a decade like that. Of course, in recent years, in later years, I became more enlightened that we can use tennis in Krishna service too, and so like that. I don't know. It's been about 5 years since I played. Since Krishna knocked me on the head with a tennis racket, and I got 11 stitches. Ooh. It's true. And then I realized there's a message here. Meditate carefully. And the message was like, don't do this anymore. Okay. That was early in 2021, so I haven't played for about 4 years. So yeah, so then we got in. There was, security. We got to the prison. There was one devotee in the prison in particular who Chandrasekhar was corresponding with, and it was Prasad, Kirtan, Bhagavad Gita. It was a wonderful program, like very sincere people. Wonderful program. And yeah, so then I realized pretty quickly that because I assumed that the tennis players, they were like maybe the army generals and the prison administrators, but no, they were actually the prisoners. It was a minute because a prison, like 7 layers of barbed wire. No, it wasn't barbed wire like that. And so the prisoners like that, there wasn't barbed wire. There was the line. You don't cross the line. So it was like for white collar crime. The prisoners were proud, like, oh, yes, here we have 3 bank managers here, and tomorrow there's a state house representative coming for taking bribes and things like that. Okay, so okay, so but still, it's not freedom, because like I'd say, yeah, I want to go to Hawaii and visit my daughter. Well, you can't do that. No, you step over the white line, then you're in maximum security prison. Then you're in the maximum security prison. All right, so Durga, yeah. All right, so then maybe the warden of the prison or the governor or the president, they might choose to visit the prison. And maybe they're hanging out with the prisoners. Or maybe they're in the cafeteria with the prisoners, right? And maybe an ignorant person, a prisoner might think, oh, there's a governor. He's just like me. He's just like us. He's in the prison. He's in the cells. So that's ignorance. No, there's a big difference. The governor's there on pastime. Pastime, just like work is what like we have to do. Okay. Pastime, why? I like to go golfing on weekends, or I hike in the mountain. That's my pastime. Okay. Okay. So the governor or the warden, they might visit the cells, but they can come and go as they please. Okay, they're there on a mercy mission to give encouragement to the prisoners and to support them and to maybe encourage them to rehabilitate themselves, to be contributing members to society. So similarly, Krishna, the pure devotee, again, examples like today's Srila Prabhupada's disappearance day, Jesus, they come on a mission, but they're not bound up like prisoners like us. So that's a distinction between death and disappearance pastime. Okay, and so Krishna is saying, those who know me as the Supreme Lord is the governing principle of the material manifestation, who know me as the one underlying all the demigods, as the one sustaining everything, can with steadfast mind understand and know me even at the time of death. So, so Krishna is establishing what he established earlier in this chapter. Krishna says, Mata parataram nanyat kinchit asti dhananjaya mai sarvam idam protam sutre mani ganaiva. Sutre means like a suture, a thread. So many English words come from the Sanskrit. So Krishna's saying like that there's no true superior to me, that everything rests on me as pearls are strung on a thread. So like at the very substratum of, that's what Krishna's saying. It's like to remember Krishna. It's like God out there. Well, there's a sense in which God out there, and God is the very source of our existence, the supreme personality of Godhead, Bhagavan Sri Krishna, the very source of our existence. So when we're remembering Krishna, chanting, that's why Prabhupada says that this chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. He says it's not an artificial imposition on the mind. It's not something externally imposed. It's the original consciousness of the self. It's the original consciousness of the self. And and so and so so by remembering Krishna through his name, his form, his pastimes, then it's not something external. We're connecting with the very ground of our very existence. And that's true security. A quote I've been using a lot recently, including in some of our recent seminars, from Gabor Mate. He says that safety is not the absence of threat, it's the presence of connection. So the way I understand that, based on Bhagavad Gita, and I know I've shared with some of you, it's kind of dormant now, but 10, 12 years ago, Gabor Mate and I had a Skype and correspondence friendship. We showed him how to chant Hare Krishna Japa and things like that. And so, so we understand that connection with the very core of our existence, the very ground and substratum, the foundation of our existence, that's the secure connection. That's Krishna. That's Krishna. So it's not something external. And situated in that connection, and the whole Bhagavad Gita, all Bhakti Yoga, is each moment, each day to enhance that connection. That's the connection of that's a security that no threat can touch. That'll never be crushed by time, and never be ravaged by time or devoured by the snake of time. And anything external that we're trying to create a connection with, at best it'll provide some temporary, illusory sense of safety or security. And so so and then it's gonna, we go to the 8th chapter, Krishna's, because like in one sense death is happening at every moment. In another sense, for the body there is nothing but death. It's already dead. Okay. But just like we drive a car, the car appears alive maybe to an alien visiting from another planet, but actually the car's it's always made of dead stuff, rubber, metal, plastic. It appears alive because the driver's inside. So the body's made of dead stuff. It appears alive. It appears alive because we, the spirit soul, which we're actually deathless. And that's an essential distinction between matter and spirit. Jayate miyate vakara chinnayam bhutva bhavita vana bhuya. Ajunicham shashvato yam prano nahanyate hanyamane sharire. For the soul, there's never birth nor death like there is for the body. And having once been, the soul never ceases to be. The soul's unborn, undying, primeval, everlasting, eternal. He's not slain when the body is slain. So we get that, and we're good. We get that. That's fearlessness. Srila Prabhupada's name from birth, Abhay Charan Aravindam. Fearless at the lotus feet of Krishna. Fully embodying and personifying this verse, chapter 7, text 30 of Bhagavad Gita. And so then, in a sense, the next chapter is so much about consciousness at the time of death. And Krishna's saying, Ata kale chamam eva muktvasmaram kalevaram, one who's absorbed in me at the time of death. Naturally, we gain and reveal our original deathless spiritual body composed of eternity, bliss, and knowledge. And the principle is yam yam vapi smaran bhavam chajat yante kalevaram Tam tam eveti konte asadatad bhava bhavita. Whatever state of consciousness that we're absorbed in when leaving the body, that'll take us to the next body. That'll take us to the next body. Okay. And so the encouragement here, because whatever state we're absorbed in at the time of death, for the most part, it's going to be highly, highly influenced by the consciousness we develop in this lifetime. Some basic, simplistic examples. If we develop a consciousness of I want a really strong body, so we get buff. Is that the term? Buff. Okay. We can work out the 6-packs and things like that. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So then actually, if we think about it, human bodies aren't, great for being strong. Let's say we put the strongest Mr. Universe or wrestler in a cage with an angry gorilla. It's really no competition, okay? Or just like a muscle mass, muscle mass. The elephants or the rhinoceros, they got lots more muscle mass than you. Okay, so but maybe if that's my consciousness, yum yums, moppies, then in the next, okay, then you'll take birth in the womb of a female elephant. You got muscle mass, okay? Or let's say our focus is, I just want to eat everything and anything all the time. So like, yeah, I relate to that one, by the way. Yeah, and so yeah, okay. So then, but the human body is not good because, like, we eat and then I got indigestion, this or that. But then, like, okay, you can get the body of a hog or a pig eating any old slop, and do you feel guilty? Like maybe I ate too much last night. No, pig doesn't feel any of that. Doesn't feel any of that. So like, there's better bodies for all of that. There's better bodies for all of that. So the recommendation is become completely Krishna conscious and get a body that's designed to enjoy and play and dance with the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his pure saintly associates. And so we could just absorb ourselves there at the time of death, but it's not likely if we don't practice in this lifetime. It's not likely. Prabhupada gives the example of let's say if my goal is to get a PhD, a doctorate. Now I can say, here's my plan. Here's my plan. I'm gonna like party every night. And maybe I'll read like a book a year or something. And just like, go to the beach and the bar. And then yeah, what's that?
Football games.
Football, yeah. Football 24, ESPN, and video games. And then when I grow up, 10, 20, 30 years, I could get an honorary PhD. I could get an honorary doctorate. Now that could happen. You could do that plan, and there is like an infinitesimal chance some respected university will award you an honorary doctorate when you're 40, 50, 60 years old. Could happen at the same time. If my actual goal is like I want a PhD, like we wouldn't recommend that method. We wouldn't recommend ESPN 14 hours a day, right? And we recommend no, you study hard for the SATs and you get like that. You show yourself to be a scholar. You read books. You develop your intellect. You study for the exams, and yeah, and that's some austerity. You might want to party less and like that, and then 12 years from now you got your PhD. So that's the path if you're serious about it. So similarly, we could simply why do I need to do any sadhana? I'll just like at the time of death, I'll just be completely, purely, devotionally absorbed in Krishna consciousness. Till then, who cares about Bhagavad Gita? I got a life to live. It's kind of like the honorary degree program. Okay. Like if you're really serious about it, not so recommended. Could happen. Now, here's the thing, but even apart from time of death, I guess I'll share personally here, it's also consistent with the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita, even apart from time of death and what will be the results, I mean, this bhakti yoga, it's the happiest lifestyle anyway, apart from what happens in the consciousness at the time of death. Kind of like, there's nothing in me. It's just like, I'm doing all this preparation for the time of death, but I really wish I could go back to the stuff I used to do. Not at all. It's like, it's just like the cleanest, happiest. It's the best food. It's the best association. It's the best philosophy. It's just, so like, even apart from the time of death calculation. And so, our purpose here isn't to be morbid, actually, talking about death. Today is the anniversary of the disappearance day of Srila Prabhupada. So it's a celebration, it's a festival. So, but it's the death. It's because the principle here is for the pure devotees of Krishna, again, like Prabhupada or Jesus. Everything is a pastime, so it's worthy of celebration. Now, it's a different mood, for sure. Because like back in August, about 2 months ago, right here at Prabhupada House, we had Prabhupada's appearance day right after Janmashtami. So it's also a celebration. It is a different mood. It's a different mood. But it's different mood, just like Srila Prabhupada leading a Ratha Yatra, organizing a Ratha Yatra in Calcutta at 5 years old. Srila Prabhupada dancing ecstatically at Ratha Yatra in London in the 1970s. Srila Prabhupada gravely chastising a disciple for foolishness. Srila Prabhupada rising at 1 a.m. to give us his purpose. Each of the pastimes, they're transcendental, they're purifying to hear about, to absorb ourselves in. And there's different moods to each past. There's sweetness, there's humor. So this is definitely like, there's a more somber mood. Not like a material funeral, but it's a more somber, it's a different mood than Prabhupada's appearance day or Srila Prabhupada's pastimes of his joy when he sees one of his books is published and distributed, things like that. So it's pastime, it's worthy of celebration because it's all meant for our benefit. It's all meant for our benefit. It's all meant to inspire us to get tired of the prison house, to not make our life if I stay in the prison, maybe I can bribe the guard, get some extra cigarettes. That's material life. I'm trying to, okay. Or I can get an extra 10 minutes in the exercise yard. Yeah. No, to get to liberate ourselves from the prison altogether. And there's a process to do that. And my perspective, not that like I'm any scholar or practitioner of Christianity, but I can say for sure to the extent that I've sincerely followed Prabhupada in the past 45 years or so, I've become a much better Jew and a much better Christian. That's true. But my perspective is maybe in Christianity, they tend to overemphasize the disappearance pastime. Okay. First, I'd like maybe more of Jesus dancing and in love of God and like that. So there could be an overemphasis on the disappearance pastime. We can get into the psychological reasons for that, but so we don't want to like in a sense we can say there's nothing special about Prabhupada's disappearance pastime, but I want to minimize them. But in the sense of like all of Prabhupada's activities are relishable and glorious and purifying and transcendental. And today's, again, whether it's sailing on the Jaladutin, writing his poetry, suffering 2 heart attacks, and and taking full shelter in Krishna and Srila Bhakti Siddhanta. Every letter he wrote, every word from Prabhupada's books conveys truth and simultaneously is non-different from the truth that it conveys. And today's a special day to focus on his disappearance pastime. Yeah, and as far as death, yeah, so much material life is it's like a commitment. I'm going to avoid this death thing. An analogy we use sometimes is let's say you get the car of your dreams. I've never had a car in my dreams, but cars were never my thing.
66 Mustang Ford convertible. That's mine.
She's defined it.
I defined it.
She's defined it precisely. Ford convertible, 66 Mustang.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, so you got the car of your dreams. And it's paid off.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the keys. Insurance is paid for a lifetime. Wow. Okay. Now, so you have a good time. One thing. In the car, there's a bomb. And it's going to go off. You don't know when, but there's a bomb. And it could go off like later today. Might not go off for 20 years, maybe 40 years. But what's important? You just enjoy. Go. Go for it. Go for it. Do it. Do it. All that stuff. Okay. Now, the only way we can really get into it is if we plaster ourselves with enough layers of intoxication to try to forget that the bomb's there. Maybe just smoke this and take a tab of that and then drink some whiskey. Because as long as you have so the whole consumerist society, it's about just a bomb? What bomb? Okay. Yeah. Mm. So, yeah. So a statistic we like to reference a lot. Studies have indicated the death rate remains steady at 100%. So the bomb's in every car. Another analogy from Srila Prabhupada, that to transform from kitten consciousness, to transform to kitten consciousness from rat or mouse consciousness. It's an analogy. The jaws of the cat represent death and its accompanying friends, old age, disease. Krishna says, 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadi Dukkha Doshanu Darshanam. Real wisdom means understanding the inherently embarrassing situation of being trapped in a body that's subject to birth, death, old age, disease. We can be so proud and this and that. And there's a place for healthy pride. But to get real spiritual intelligence, who made us a spiritual and superior spiritual intelligence, means this is not natural to be trapped in a body that has this bomb in it, and the signals leading to the bomb: old age, disease. So let me get out of this place. Let me get out of this place. And there's a method for that. Bhagavad Gita is giving us bhakti yoga, and so to the extent that we live for ephemeral, temporary gratifications, then that's we're being like the mouse in the jaws of the cat. What's the experience of the rat or the mouse in the jaws of the cat? Nightmare, terrifying, terrifying. So the jaws of the cat, that's death and its friends, old age, disease. What's the experience of the same jaws of the cat from the perspective of the kitten? Sheltering, soothing, loving, strong, nurturing. So the kitten is us to the extent that we're living to cultivate Krishna consciousness, cultivate with loving devotional connection with the Supreme Person, the very source and substratum and ground of our existence. And then And even all the disturbances, Tate, we quoted this in the recent seminar, Tate nukampam susunikshimano bunjana evat makritam vipakam vidvagva purbir pitadan namaste jiveti mukti pade sadayabak. Then even the death, the old age, the disease, all the disturbances, even if we think of we're scared of, it can be the death of my image to this person, the death of my popularity, these ego investments, and they're being threatened. So like, okay, we see that's for the devotional heart, that's impetus to deepen my commitment, deepen my enthusiasm and inspiration for bhakti, to serve Srila Prabhupada with sincerity and to support his mission. And so, yes, so that connection with substratum, that's this whole process of bhakti yoga, the cornerstone of which is chanting the names of Krishna, and at the many mantras with the names of Krishna at the foundation of the practice given to us by Srila Prabhupada, representing the Vedic Pancha Triki process, chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I thought maybe in closing, before we go to comments, questions, realizations, we'll hear something directly, from Srila Prabhupada about his disappearance pastimes. So what I have here, this is a publication from the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust, and it's called Conversations with Srila Prabhupada. It's a 37-volume set. 36 is the first is from 1966, and 36 takes us till November 77. Volume 37 are some things that were left out, and then they put together some things that weren't in the first 36 volumes. Okay, so there's a lot here, but maybe we'll just do 5 or 10 minutes of reading. So, yeah, so here we have, this is in Vrindavan, India. Yeah, this is in Vrindavan, India, November 8th, 1977. Okay. And again, like it's a different mood than some other conversations with Srila Prabhupada. And so Prabhupada is talking, like sometimes in English, sometimes Hindi, sometimes Bengali. And definitely there are versions with the Hindi and Bengali translated. And I have them, but here I just have the English version, but we'll get the idea. We'll just read briefly. So Tamal Krishna Goswami says, but what did Prabhupada just say? Because Prabhupada was talking in either Hindi or Bengali. And then Bhakti Charu Swami, who knows Hindi and Bengali, he says, Prabhupada just said that, this morning his condition was bad, not now. Bhavananda says, Prabhupada was complaining of mental distress this morning also. Bhakti true. Srila Prabhupada? Prabhupada says, Bhakti true. Srila Prabhupada? And then Bhakti true in Bengali is asking about the mental distress Prabhupada had spoken about that morning. Yeah. And then Prabhupada in Hindi, he's speaking in Hindi, though he uses the English word poison. He uses the English word poison, which, again, if we started dozens of pages back, Prabhupada many times is bringing up poison. And I'll say that it's clear, Prabhupada, they're talking about deliberate homicide by poison. Sometimes it's said, they're talking about the side effects of medication. Maybe there's also conversation about that. For example, as we'll read here, they're talking about a case right there in this 1970s in Calcutta, where a lawyer murdered his wife through poisoning. They're talking about a Shankaracharya mat, where the disciples murdered the guru through poison. So they're talking about murder by poison, and that's what they're talking about. Maybe a Rakshasa could have done that to Prabhupada like that. So they're clearly talking about murder by poison. And so Prabhupada's talking about poison. In Hindi, they're using the English word poison. So a devotee there says someone gave him poison here, Tamal Krishna Goswami. Prabhupada was thinking that someone had poisoned him. And then Tamal Krishna Goswami goes on, so that was the mental distress. And other devotees say, yes, yes. And then Bhakti Swami said, he said that when Srila Prabhupada was saying that, there must be some truth behind it. And then there's a lot of people there. That's November 8th, 1977 in Vrindavan. And then Tamal Krishna Goswami says, Srila Prabhupada, Shastriji says that there must be some truth to it if you say that. So who is it that has poisoned? So it's clear, it's really not a question of whether Srila Prabhupada was given poison with murderous intent. The question's not whether. The question is who did it. The question is who did it, okay? And so it's clear Srila Prabhupada's talking about mental distress. Of course, we understand any experience from Srila Prabhupada is completely transcendental. It's not like my material mental distress. And so he's talking about mental distress, and Prabhupada's saying, and everyone there is affirming that Prabhupada's saying, because Prabhupada is saying he's being homicidally poisoned. Okay, so again, I'm just reading excerpts. If we read the full thing, all of that, Prabhupada says it like more than 12 times. Okay, then, okay, I'm gonna fast forward a bit. Again, in my files, I've written about Prabhupada's disappearance pastime going back to the late 1990s, but maybe I'll just read for a few more minutes here. So now we're at November 10th, 1977. November 10th, also in Vrindavan, India. And okay, so Prabhupada's there with his followers and a Kaviraj, like an Ayurvedic doctor team. So Prabhupada, I'll just give you some context. Prabhupada said he wants to go on Padayatra, Parikram. He wants to go with Lokanath Swami on the bullock cart and with the cows and circumambulate Vrindavan, circumambulate in the bullock cart. Okay, that's what Prabhupada says. And Prabhupada very clearly says, if I do that, I'll be cured. Says, if I do that, I'll be cured. So here, relating to Prabhupada's expressed desire, Tamal Krishna Goswami says, this seems like suicide, Srila Prabhupada, this program. It seems to some of us like it's suicidal. And Prabhupada responds, and this is also suicidal. Tamal Krishna Goswami. I'm going to say that one again for emphasis. So Tamal Krishna Goswami says, this seems like suicide, Srila Prabhupada. This program, it seems to some of us like it's suicidal. Prabhupada replies, and this is also suicidal. Prabhupada saying, staying here is suicidal. Prabhupada knows what's happening. Tamal Krishna Goswami says, Prabhupada said, and this is also suicide. Then Tamal Krishna Goswami says, now you have to choose which suicide. Then Prabhupada says, now for me, everything from Prabhupada is brilliant. This is just like such a supernal level of spontaneous brilliance. So Tamal Krishna Goswami says, now you have to choose which suicide. Srila Prabhupada says, the Ravana will kill and Ram will kill. Better to be killed by Ram, That Maricha, if he does not go to mislead Sita, he'll be killed by Ravana. And if he goes to be killed by Ram, then it is better. Tamal Krishna Goswami says, who is this Prabhupada's talking about? And the devotees say, Maricha. Okay. So Tamal Krishna Goswami says, now you have to choose which suicide. And Prabhupada gave this analogy from the Ramayana. He says, the Ravana will kill or the Ram will kill. Better to be killed by Ram. Eh? Mm. So some of you probably aren't familiar with the analogy, so I'll explain, and I'll give some context of what Prabhupada's doing there. So in the Ramayana, that's just like there's so much popularity of the pastimes of Krishna in India. There's probably even more popularity of the pastimes of Sita and Ram, Sita, Ram, Lakshman, Hanuman, Sita and Ram, right? And so in one of the pastimes, so kind of like the big villain in that is named Ravana. He's got 10 heads, and I won't go through the whole Ramayana, it's quite epic, but so Sita, Ram, and Lakshman, they're in the forest. And Ravana wants to steal Sita. He's attracted by her beauty. So he wants to steal her. and whenever Ram and Lakshman go out, like that, they protect Sita in like a magical, mystical circle, so that it's like a force field, some mystic power, spiritual mystic power. So Ravana had a friend, associate named Maricha. And Maricha was a shapeshifter. He was a shapeshifter mystic yogi. And Maricha, he was kind of like sold out to Ravana, but he understood who Ram and Sita were. And like these are these great pure personalities, the supreme personality of Godhead. And so Ravana crafted a scheme. He's told to Maricha, you shapeshift as this like beautiful, irresistible golden deer and kind of prance around. And Sita's going to want you for a pet. And then Ravana arranged that Lakshman was away. Then Ram will say, "Well, okay, I'll get the deer for you." Okay. And then I'll arrange to get Sita like that. And the plan, which in a sense and temporarily it worked, was because Ravana was outside of the force field. He couldn't compete with Ram's powers. But he was like Ravana himself dressed himself as like a poor. It kind of relates to some of our conversation on the ride here. Nitai Lil and I, we talk, something. The sannyas ashram is it's a very revered, honored situation in a true spiritual society, and unfortunately, it's been denigrated and mocked. So Ravana dressed as a false sannyasi. Ravana dressed as a false sannyasi, holy person. Oh, Mataji, do you have some alms for me? And Sita, with her soft heart, oh, sure. And then when she got close enough, he grabbed her like that. That was the plan. So anyhow, the part we're focusing on here, Ravana is talking to Maricha, the mystic yogi. He says, so you go trick Ram with the golden deer. So Maricha, he thought like, okay, so if I don't do this, I'm killed on the spot by Ravana. If I do it, I'm going to be killed by Ram. So he thought, can we be killed by Ravana will kill or Ram will kill? It's more glorious to be killed by Ram. So I'm going to do it. So Prabhupada, after he said, staying here is also suicide. But it's not like Prabhupada was saying, if I go on the bullock cart, that's suicide. Because Prabhupada earlier said, I'll be cured if I go on the parikram. And even apart from spiritual purity, Srila Prabhupada was a medical man, he was a pharmacist, and he knew what was going on. And so now you have to choose which suicide, then Prabhupada responds. The Ravana will kill or Ram will be killed. Meaning, like if I go on bullock cart to all the holy places of Vrindavan, that's okay. Let's say if I do depart, that's glorious. But here it's like being killed by Ravana, the false sannyasi camp. Hare Krishna. So thanks for giving your attention to the to some philosophy and pastime around Srila Prabhupada's departure. There's a lot more here and in other places, but I appreciate your attention. Thank you. I'll pause there, and if there's any comments, questions, sharing, inspirations at this time.
I'm gonna share, I just want to share a couple things that are coming.
Yeah, so
One's about the parikrama and the other's about the time of death. So I forget, so I'm saying I'm supposed to.
Sure.
Since Ramachandra was here, I was thinking about how during COVID he would play the parikrama on the video on the morning because he was living with you during COVID.
Yeah.
And in the mornings when I would tune in, could see the live parikrama. It was really nice.
Yeah.
I loved watching it. So I just wanted to kind of say thanks for that. Watching that was interesting, and I've never done it, but I like watching. We had kind of a bird's eye view of someone walking it, dodging all the things and going here and there. It was the whole thing on video during our chanting time. So Jai.
I'll just briefly interject. Actually, Ramachandra, he was staying with me early in 2020. I'm going to speak about some history. Ramachandra was staying with me early 2020 to participate in a foundational and advanced seminar that Mother Malini and I had organized in Florida early in 2020. So the foundational there, and then right there is that was right in the middle of the seminar. That was when there was the whole lockdown.
Yeah.
We went into the seminar, life people were doing. When we came out, there was a whole lockdown. So they couldn't travel on planes. So what was like a 2-3 week visit became like a 10-month visit, and we had a great time together. Please continue, Lakshmi. Dr. Keith also.
To come out of such a beautiful experience for 7 days and walk into everything was just quiet and closed down. Beautiful. Really, really shifting in my life, particularly. So I was just appreciating that I know what a parikrama is because of that. And the other thing was I heard Prabhupada Moya interviewed on a podcast, on the Non-Rockets podcast one time, and they were talking about that verse, about what you think about the time of death. So I was listening to the interview, and he's a devotee that's a very strong devotional family. He's a disciple of Prabhupada. He's interesting to listen to. He's got a good cadence, and he's very lively, enthusiastic.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed his interview, and this verse came up, and they were talking about. He shared that one time he was at the Ganges swimming or doing something. He fell and he kind of got washed down a little bit. The river was strong, and he got pulled under, and he thought, "Okay, this is it.
This is it.
Coming out." And this was years ago, so I hope I'm remembering this correctly. But I've never forgotten it because it had a huge impact on me hearing him say this. He said, he was an older person at that time. He wasn't like 20. He was later in life. So he was going down, being pulled down under the water. The bubbles are coming up, and this is it. And what pops into his consciousness was an old TV commercial he grew up with about soapy bubbles, for the dishwashing liquid or something.
Yeah.
So he sang the tune on the interview. And I laugh because all the time weird stuff comes up in my consciousness that I think, I don't want to remember that TV commercial or that social media thing or that weird thing happened second. I don't want to remember that. But it's so deep in there, and that stuff just pops up. But you think at the time of death that somebody like Prabhupada Moya would be like, Hare Krishna, and yet even him. So then I'm like, I got a lot of deconditioning to do. And I hope that, because I have so much stuff that just stuck in there. I try not to add to it, but I do. I still add to the junk in there. We hear it. It's all around us.
It's all around us.
In our consciousness. just if you go out of your home, even if you stay in your home, if you go out there, you go to Walmart or you go to CVS or you go to UF or football game or whatever, it just comes in so fast. So I have used that podcast to kind of remind me to be super discerning and careful and understand how discerning I need to be. I want to be. I'm not saying I am all the time, but every time I hear that verse, I think about that story, and I think about how slippery it is, and how just I feel like I don't stand a flying chance if he didn't stand a chance. But you never know. Like you said, I might get some mercy, or maybe I'll think of Krishna if he decides that's good enough. But I don't know. Just felt like sharing that because it was powerful for me. I've shared it in our morning program a couple of times because that reference comes up so often, is the consciousness that we're building, that I'm accumulating at this very moment, sitting here with you guys and preparing the prasadam yesterday, like listening to Prabhupada and trying to cultivate a consciousness that's super aware of my purpose in life and my connection to Krishna, and the purifying that I want to happen in my body, my heart it's hard. It's hard even when we know that it's slippery. So I'm just putting that out there for y'all there in case you needed some motivation. Even a soap commercial can come up in the last minute.
Thanks for sharing, actually. Well, I'll say personally right now, I just hearing your sharing for those few minutes, I'm impacted and I'm moved. Hopefully, I'll take how I'm moved into action. I'm moved to deeper urgency in seeing all of the soap bubble commercials I have in my consciousness. Yes, I could tell you who won every Super Bowl starting 1960, etc., etc., etc. And so, like, yeah, so that moves me to deeper urgency, hearing Kripamoya Prabhu's sharing. Thanks for expressing that. It's very impactful.
I just want to say that that was the first and only foundational advanced course that I organized in 2020.
Yep.
And so that was so it's really nice to be here with everyone. And then of course Prabhupada's house opened up October 30th of 2020.
Yeah.
And Mama Chandra was here many times and graced us with, his like he was known as the living monk.
The living monk.
and the living monk, came to visit Prabhupada's house. And so, a lot of fun memories here, and leading kirtan and spiritual conversation, and appreciating that. Out of the blue, I heard from Ramachandra that he wanted to be online today, and it was such a nice reunion.
Nice reunion from that advanced seminar from the early days of Prabhupada House.
Yeah.
Ramachandra and I, we have connection with sharing Krishna consciousness in the Middle East. Not that we've done that together in person, but we've collaborated a lot in that. So thanks for being here, Ramachandra.
Thank you. And thank you, Laura, for joining. She got the right number, so I'm glad to see that you're online. And there I saw you real quick, so thank you, Laura. And I see Valerie. I just wanted to recognize and Rukmini. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Valerie, Rukmini, Deruvo, and Ramachandra. Bhakti Rosa.
I have a comment and then I have a question. I'm going to try not to forget one for the other. But so I've listened to the recordings of these conversations, the one that you read.
November 77.
Yeah. And earlier in your talk, you spoke about like Jesus's death and how it can be very overemphasized. And I've heard that Jesus's death, and when it was talked about more and spread more, it actually was like the growth of Christianity, when people like understood what had happened. So with that being said, after having listened to the recording of that conversation, there was something that deeply moved me And that was I listened to more than what we had just read today, and it became apparent to me about someone who was in the room who was talking to him. And this person asked him, like, who poisoned you? And Prabhupada just didn't say anything. There was this long, what I interpreted as an intentional silence.
Srila Prabhupada was intentionally silent for 13 seconds.
And the thing that occurred to me is like the story in the Bible. I don't know the Bible very well, right? But the story of the Last Supper, I think it was, right, where it's talking to the disciples and it's Judas and saying, you all will basically forsake me.
Denying.
Yeah. And they all deny it, and Judas, who knows what he's done, it's just evident that he's not going to, right? And then in this instance, it's Tamal Krishna, right? He's asking Prabhupada, who poisoned you? And Prabhupada's just silent. And it touched me that it's in that same mood of like what grace and mercy it takes to be in the presence of the betrayer. And you don't wail or fight or yell, like there's no reaction except just, okay, I'm here with you. I find that very moving of what it must take to do that.
Like in the spirit of Jesus on the cross saying, please forgive them, they know not what they do. Like just that depth of inconceivable mercy and compassion.
And so in that same line of like, if people understood what happened and could realize, I feel today would be different, and many people would be very moved knowing about this pastime. So I just wanted to talk about that.
Comment. Maybe you're aware of it, Bhakti Rosa, I'm not sure, but you're completely channeling Srila Prabhupada. And, you're 100% channeling Srila Prabhupada. In February 77, there's a conversation in Mayapur, India, recorded, transcribed, not just like, I heard someone said something on the internet. Sometimes I get frustrated. No, I heard someone said that she thought that this one said that Prabhupada said, so it's like, no, it's like recorded, transcribed. And February 77, like according to the forensic analysis, it seems probable that that's when the cadmium poison started. World-class top forensic laboratories have, they've taken multiple samples of Srila Prabhupada's hair from 77 and multiple samples of Srila Prabhupada's hair pre-77. And pre-77, the cadmium levels are normal, like my hair or your hair would be. And the 77 samples have cadmium levels 25,000% above normal. Not like 10%? No, 100%? No, 200. That 250 times 25,000%. Teams of professional, like the levels of forensic investigators who are expert witnesses in the Supreme Court and that sort of thing. They've determined there's no way that level of cadmium could get there other than deliberate homicidal poisoning. Anyhow, on February 77 in Mayapur, Prabhupada talks about the crucifixion of Jesus. And Prabhupada essentially saying, what he says, I'm paraphrasing, but I have the exact thing. What Prabhupada is essentially saying, Christianity, it was pretty small. I mean, it affected some, but it was relatively insignificant on a global scope. Said, but once it became known about the crucifixion, the disappearance pastime of Jesus, then the movement of Jesus really spread exponentially. And interesting, Prabhupada was saying that, like, just according to the forensics, just as the poison was starting. So it's a very poignant observation. So yeah, that's my hope too. that like as the realities and truth of Prabhupada's disappearance pastimes are more and more known, then the Jesus-like qualities of Prabhupada will be more and more understood and appreciated, and that will exponentially bolster and energize Srila Prabhupada's genuine movement. I use the term genuine deliberately.
So I have a question, and I don't know the right word, so ask for patience. I was in a conversation with someone the other day about the nature of devotion and our experience in life. And earlier in the talk today, you were talking about the gross body and how, we, I guess, are striving for being with God and having a spiritual body.
Yeah.
Goloka Vrindavan.
Sure.
Like, so in the conversation about devotion, and it was about love, part of the conversation was that in devotion and in love, there's a simultaneous experience of both the joy and how beautiful it can be, but then simultaneously, like, there's the yearning, and for example, when there's separation, there's pain,
Yeah.
and these exist together.
Yeah.
And if you're well situated, even in pain, you understand and you're grateful.
Yeah.
Because you're in pain that you had this.
Yeah.
So my question has to do with the experience in Goloka Vrindavan when if you attain that, I've heard it described as like bliss and ecstasy, and there's all of this experience. But I think to myself, we're taught that everything here is a reflection.
Yes.
Certainly, there is also the pain that's required almost to enjoy it. Does that make sense? Like, it feels like both should exist there also. Is that true?
Well, thank you, Bhakti Rosa. Thanks for your question. Hare Krishna. So, yeah, everything that exists in the shadow, in the reflection, exists in substance in the real thing. Chapter 15, Bhagavad Gita, Krishna gives the reflected banyan tree, right? A tree with its roots down and its branches up. So where do you see such a thing? Oh, if I'm standing on a lake or a river and there's a big tree on the other side, the reflection in the water, the branches are down and the roots are up, branches are getting it. Right. So then in the reflected tree, if we try to reach for a fruit, there's nothing substantial there. And Srila Prabhupada, in his purport to chapter 15, text 1 Bhagavad Gita, he gives an example from geometry. He said, so, everything material, the reflection is just an illusion. And, and that's, I remember growing up, there was a progressive rock band who had an album called The Grand Illusion, and like that. Okay, so, and it's pretty common in poets and philosophers. It's all, and that's true, probably true. In one sense, it's garden variety realization. It's nice, but it's garden variety, nothing special. And so, but then a circle has 360 degrees. The reflection is just 180 degrees. So then there's a real banyan tree. That's the other 180 degrees. There's real branches, real trunk, and real leaves and twigs like that. So everything has so there's spiritual pain. There's spiritual pain. There's spiritual anger. There's spiritual anguish. Mother Yashoda, she's in forgetfulness that Krishna is the all-powerful Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Krishna's my little boy and he just ate dirt and gets sick. And so she's like worried. Now, my forgetfulness of Krishna as God just sends me further into misery and illusion and foolishness and alienation. Mother Yashoda's forgetfulness that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead moves her into deeper love for Krishna. Open your mouth, let me see if you ate dirt. So she's in anxiety. She's in and that. But that's spiritual anxiety because it deepens one's realization of who they are, a spirit, soul, servant of Krishna. And so there's spiritual envy and resentment and anger and spiritual fear and spiritual sadness. So it's all there in its pure form. It's not some sort of monochrome, monotonous, everyone has a plastered, blissful smile on their face all the time. And in fact, all the drama here, the whole drama of life here with all the emotion and et cetera, that's that's really, with all of its variety and richness, actually, in comparison to the real banyan tree, it's quite a dull, narrow reflection of the real thing. So there's real spiritual pain, which is permeated by spiritual bliss, by spiritual joy. There's spiritual anger. Right? Krishna says in chapter 8 of Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, Tasmat sarveshu kalershu mam manushmara yujacha maya pitamano bhutir maya pitamano bhudir mame veshyasya samshya. He says to Arjuna, yeah, so you fight. Remember me and fight. So to fight the battle and kill so many, Arjuna need to get fierce. So that's spiritual fierceness. It's stemming from and deepening love for Krishna. Thank you. Thank you. Hare Krishna Damayanti. Ramachandra wrote, Hare Krishna, thank you, dear Govinda Prabhu, for class and everyone sharing. I was wondering, throughout the years, what inspires you to deepen your dedication, surrender to Krishna and Prabhupada? Oh, Hare Krishna. And Laura wrote a chat, thank you, love to all, with a rose. Me, what inspires me? Well, I would say, like, okay, even if we talk, like, during today's discussion, we're talking about like Prabhupada's Jesus-like qualities. So the more I follow Prabhupada by chanting Hare Krishna, reading his books, the more I want to serve this person. And the more that I do that, maybe it's just like 1 micrometer increase, then I get a taste, and I get some taste. I'm not saying like I've, got that taste of Goloka Vrindavan, but whatever drops of taste. And so I can say that I have enough experience that the more I practice this, I'm not saying for me it's just like, yeah, every day I increase my taste, but definitely the curve is up. I'm still influenced by the modes of nature, so there's ups and downs, but the curve. So yeah, the more I practice, the more I just have affirmation, confirmation. This stuff works. This stuff works for me to be relieved of petty miseries and anxieties and material ego battles and like that. And this stuff works to give me the joyful nectar I'm actually hankering for. And so kind of like it's an upward spiral. Then the more I get that taste, whether it's just like this discussion here for the past hour, 20 minutes, this morning, reading Chaitanya Charitamrita about Lord Chaitanya's appreciation of his devotees. And I took a drop of walk and was meditating on that. And then it gives me a taste, and that taste deepens my enthusiasm. And then that enthusiasm to serve with a little bit more sincerity and to replace the soap bubbles commercials with the pastimes of Chaitanya Charitamrita. And that gives me more taste in an upward spiral. So that's basically my process, and that is consistent with what is described in Prabhupada's books, Rupa Goswami's, just like in this verse here. Prabhupada talks about transcendental association of Krishna consciousness. So that's associating like we are right now. There's about 12 or 14 of us between in-person and online. So in this association, we associate with Krishna and Srila Prabhupada through chanting Hare Krishna, reading Prabhupada's books. So through that Adal Shara Tata Sadhu Sangatod Bhajana Kriya. So the more I get a taste, the more my trust, like that my trust deepens, and then I give with more enthusiasm and less ignorant resistance. So I appreciate your question and the opportunity to speak on it personally, Ramachandra Prabhu.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Haley.
My question is about like great clean souls like Prabhupada, Jesus.
Yeah.
Do these souls come to us to support us from the spiritual realm, or do they go through the cycle of life and death like up to the point to like Prabhupada and then transcend?
Mhm.
Like how does that work?
Okay. Thanks for your question. Well, based on my study and understanding, I wouldn't want to like overly generalize because they can take so many paths. And well, my understanding of Srila Prabhupada is, yeah, he came from the spiritual realm, like with Krishna in the fields. And then kind of on that platform, they're not limited to be in one place at once. So it's not like Prabhupada necessarily left Goloka Vrindavan. My understanding is Jesus came from, let's call it like a heavenly planet, but that doesn't mean he had the impurities that most demigods have. My understanding, he's a pure devotee of Krishna who kind of had some service on a heavenly planet and then came here and went through what we would experience as excruciating, inconceivable suffering. I appreciate the discussion. Like, for example, Narada Muni. I know you have Bhagavatam in your home now. So a star in all throughout the Bhagavatam is Srila Narada Muni. He's there, first canto, second canto. He's there in Krishna's pastimes. He's a star. Okay. And then right in the first canto, chapters 4 to 7 particularly, he describes some of his historical biography. And particularly, yes. And so he describes, he was a demigod on the heavenly planet. And he was a Gandharva. He was the lead Gandharva. Gandharvas are known particularly like attractive bodily features and beautiful singing voices. So he was singing, and he describes that it got a little bit away from kirtan with Krishna in the center, and he got a bit carried away. And so some sage blessed him to wake up, come on, it's embarrassing. And so then he took birth in his second birth as a Sudra boy. Sudra, just like, okay, like his mother didn't even know who his father was, and like not like a highly respectable family. Okay, and then the mother, so like at the place where the mother was serving, like an ashram, some pure devotees came by, named the Bhaktivedantas. It's true, the Bhaktivedantas. And they were staying there for 4 months during this time of year, actually. It's called the Chaturmasya, that month of Damodar. Like they were staying there. And she would serve them prasad. And Narada, he would just take the remnants of their prasad. He was so sincere. He got completely purified. And then his mother got bitten by a snake and she died. And then he's traveling through towns and villages and getting so much. And then Krishna appears before him in one of the Vishnu forms, and then Krishna disappears because it was just to like give him the taste. Like, that's what I want. I don't want to be trapped in the true. And anyhow, so he goes through a lifetime, and then his next birth is with Brahma as his father, as Narada Muni, who's known as the eternal spaceman. Narada Muni, Bhajaya Vina, Radhika Ramana, Name, chanting the glories of Radha Krishna with his Vina throughout the universe, and pure devotee. So he went through and there's many stories like that. Now, okay, so that when he was that demigod who was pious but got carried away, was that like he had some impurities to purify, or was that a pastime? And like this, like I don't have realization about. But many of these great saintly persons, sometimes, sometimes it is said every saint has a past and every sinner has a future. So sometimes we hear about 2, 3, 4 lifetimes um, before their full manifest saintliness. So they can take different paths. Thank you, Haley. Bhakteen Valerie.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for class. I was really enjoying it and was relating a lot to what you were sharing. What was happening for me, or what I was experiencing, was remembering the realization I had recently that this material world is a prison. I've always known that intellectually, cognitively, but I had that realization recently where it's like this is a prison. There is so much suffering here. I got to get out of here. And it like created this urgency for me of like, wow, I really want to get out of here. I really want to like let go of these attachments. I want to be more consciousness. I want to be more conscious. I want to evolve my consciousness. Um, you shared this analogy I've never heard you share before about the car, the dream car, and then there's a bomb in the dream car. And when you were sharing that story, I felt a lot of anxiety, like fear and anxiety. Yeah, when I just realized that death is that close and so uncertain, and it really can happen anytime. I oftentimes do feel like that with driving, when I'm driving or when Ezra's driving or something. I do feel anxious and scared
You, you,
because
you feel anxiety. It's very real. It's very real.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and that anxiety creates some urgency too. And I just keep coming back to like really the point of life is bhakti. It is chanting, it is developing love of God, it is coming closer to God. Like that's really the point of life. And it's amazing how easily I can just get sucked up into the illusion and like material living and all of the distractions, you know. But yeah, the point of life really is to develop Krishna consciousness.
Mm.
Um, I have a question. I'm curious, and I don't expect you to answer this, but I imagine that you can give me more perspective than I have. How come Srila Prabhupada co-created his disappearance pastime, being poisoned? How come he co-created that with Krishna?
Okay. Well, thanks for your question. First of all, I'll share. I'm happy to hear how you're impacted. Happy to hear your fear and anxiety. I mean that in truth, there's truth in humor. Like, yeah, I'm wishing for myself. When I'm sharing, I'm speaking to myself mostly. I'm wishing for myself to have, as I know I've shared with you, Valerie, and I know we had this exchange in a seminar recently. Srila Prabhupada said his greatest anxiety is that his followers are not scared enough of Maya. Just like, oh no, I have a nice car. It's not much problem, like that. Yeah. So this is healthy anxiety. This is healthy anxiety, and so I'm wishing, hoping, praying that I'll have that more deeply fixed in me to move me to deeper urgency and enthusiasm to serve Prabhupada and his movement. So thanks for sharing that. I'm, I'm glad to hear how you're impacted. Why, so it's described Vaishnavara Kriya Mudra Vigaya Na Bujaya, to understand, to really deeply understand the psychology of a Vaishnav. It's really not possible for a material mind like mine. Still, we can get the principles. Okay, just like we can see. Let's say, I'm not saying there's complete parallel between Jesus's disappearance pastime and Prabhupada's. There is a lot of parallel. Through Jesus's disappearance pastime, how many are inspired about, like, oh, this is not an ordinary person, like, right, like that. And so that's moved them to live a truly spiritual, godly life. Okay. So one thing, in regards to some of the excerpts I read, so one thing, our hope and part of our intention in leading this class and discussion is that the truth and realities of Srila Prabhupada's disappearance pastime will be more and more known by 7, 10 people, 700,000, 1,000,000, 10 million, 1,000,000,000 people. And then more and more people will be awed and inspired by the Jesus-like qualities of Prabhupada. How wonderful is that vision? And we get to participate in that. Srila Prabhupada says, he was asked, well, he was told, now you need to choose which suicide. Prabhupada said, the Ravana will kill and the Ram will kill. Better to be killed by Ram, eh? So we get to look at, I'll use I statements. I get to look at where am I showing up as Ravana? Where am I showing up as Ram? Where, of course, everyone's a pure spirit soul covered by different layers. Joseph Stalin, Adolf Hitler, they're all pure spirit souls covered by different types, whatever, of Ravana consciousness. So yeah, where am I invested in Ravana consciousness, and where am I being Ram, and following Srila Prabhupada with sincerity and purity? Where is my association contaminating me with Ravana consciousness, perhaps in the name of bhakti, spirituality? This is very important. Where is my association inspiring me in Sitaram, Lakshman, Hanuman consciousness? So I'm sure that the reasons for Srila Prabhupada's co-creation of his disappearance pastime with Krishna, it's beyond what I can conceive. At the same time, I'm sharing some principles and some personal realizations. I appreciate the question. Thank you, Valerie. Yeah, Prabhupada made it clear. Like there's a Ram camp and there's a Ravana camp. To what extent am I attached to approval and being part of the club in the Ravana camp? And to what extent, out of fear, am I implicating others in that same Ravana-like association? Again, I'm just endeavoring to, this is Prabhupada's analogy. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki.
Yeah.
Bhagavad Gita ki.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Now, I'll talk to you in your capacity as host.
Yes.
Japa next, then Japa, Kirtan, then Prasad. That's the program. Okay. Hare Krishna.
Okay, so. Whoever would like.